My name is Ashish Kumar. I'm an assistant professor, Department of Computer Science Engineering, Ajay Kumar Garg Engineering College, Ghaziabad. Today, my topic is operating system, operating system, and topics subject code is BCS 401. And in that topics, basically, I have to discuss about the introduction of the operating system. In this topic, I have to discuss in this that contents is introduction of the operating system and function of operating system, classification of operating system. All of you know that what is the main focus on the operating system. Operating system basically consider the user interaction between software and hardware. User basically operating system it is a work as a mediator between user and hardware, and basically user give the any inputs and it provide the output through the operating system. And in this whole PPT, I have to discuss about the function of operating system. Function of operating system, that means how to operating system manage the file, manage the memory management, manage the security management. These part of discuss in that slides, and also discuss in that topics is classification of the operating system. That means all of you know that the different operating system are discussed in OS subject, and just like a batch operating system, multi-programming operating system, multi-processor operating system, different. So I in that just I have give the summary through the in this 3 points, and move on the brief idea of operating system. So first here mentioned the computer system, basically combination of hardware plus software, and software is the application software and system software. So operating system basically focus on the kernel. Kernel is the main part of the operating system. It is a behave like the system software, and operating system, the system software that act as the intermediary interface between user of a computer and the computer hardwares. Some goals, basically some goals, operating system goals here mentioned 4 points, but I have to discuss only 2 to 3 points here. Basically goals is the throughput is increases and create the user friendly. So in before sometimes long times some people are only uses the window operating system, and in the basically window operating system, it is the very user friendly and easy to access, and it is a only for the GUI based. But another operating system is the Linux and Unix. Unix and Linux basically works on the CLI mode and GUI mode. Generally, basically in current scenario, Linux operating system is the most popular operating system, because it is a very open source operating system and easy to access and easy to download from the open source. This is a scenario of operating system. Here mentions some monitor, keyboard, and some print applications, printers, and disk drive. So basically, monitor user basically provide the any input, and operating system just coordinated and fetch the data from the drives and display in monitor system. So whole work are totally dependently upon the operating systems. The structure of computer operating systems, basically user, application, operating system, and hardware. Generally, I have to generally I have to already discuss about the operating system. It is works on the user interact through operating system hardware. So here mentioned some points accessing the computer resources divided into layers. So layer is mentioned here: user, application, operating system, and hardware. Each layer is isolated and only interact directly with the layer below of above it. If we install a new hardware devices, no need to change anything about the user application. However, you need to make change to the operating system. We need to install the device driver that an operating system will use to control the new device. Other way, if you install a new software application, no need to make any changes to your hardware, but we need to make sure the application supported by the operating system. So some points are mentioned कि it is affected from the operating system or not operating systems. So function of next I have to discuss here, function of operating system. Operating system functions are Different function are mentioned here: process management, memory management, file management, IO management, security and protection, and user interfaces. So one by one I have to discuss here. It is a basically exam point of view, function operating system is the most important. Sometime I have to see that the university paper, he asked the questions: function, what is the function of operating system, and explain one by one. So process management, process basically different process arrives in basically process. What is the process? Process is the program move on the process. If you write down the any programs and then you move on the execution form, so it is called the process. You have to write any programs, suppose in a monitor, and then you have to move on the execution part, so it is a move on CPU. So CPU collect information and then execute it. That is called the whole scenario. So here mention a process is a program in executions. A process need to certain resources including CPU times, memory, files, input devices to accomplish its task. Simultaneously, execution lead multiple process. Here mentioned by what is a multiple process. That means number of processes are introduced at a time. So operating system, it is a manage which time which process are processed, because number of process are processing, and some needs involved. Every process some input output are required. So one process move on the input output, so that times my CPU, it is ideal state, and operating system manage the. Here mentioned if process are dependent, that then they may try to share same resources. Thus task of process synchronization come to the picture. If the process independent, then due care need to be taken, avoid their overlapping memory area. Based on the priority, it is important, allow more the important process execute first and then other. So here some point mentioned. Basically, first why write up this type of lines here mentioned. Basically here mentioned if process are dependent, just P1 and P2 we have to take the one process. Suppose take P1 and P2 process. If dependent, that means is the share any variable. That is, it is a dependency. So working another process are rest phase. But so independency of the values. But if processes are independent, so no overlapping is possible and easy to use. And also last point is mentioned here, priority. If you provide any priority, suppose P1 priority 1, P2 priority 2, P3 priority 3, one by one you have to execute. So process management here say that the process, how to manage the process, and that is all are possible through the operating system. Next is the memory management. Memory management, basically memory management, memory is a large array of word of bytes, each with their own address. Suppose memory management. Basically, in a memory, you have to discuss here memory terms. So two types of memory: the volatile memory or non-volatile memory. RAM is RAM is volatile memory, and secondary disk and hard disk is the non-volatile memory. So if non-volatile memory, RAM basically execute minimum amount of space are introduced in a RAM. So how to manage that space and storage? So memory management is basically focus on the RAM, because CPU basically interact to RAM, because the RAM is the very fast memory in comparison to the hard disk way. So which space are used, and how to use the process, and how to process are used that space. So everything is managed from the operating system. In addition to the physical RAM installed in your computer, most modern operating system allow your computer to use a virtual memory system. Virtual memory allows your computer to use part of permanent storage device as extra memory. The operating system is responsible for following activities connection with memory management, keep track which part of memory are currently being used and by whom. decide which process to be loaded and memory or which process are not loaded, and allocation and delocation is all are possible through the memory. Because if suppose memory size is just 4 KB, 4 KB, so P1, P2, P3, P4 all are 1 KB. So how to is possible? Ki another process is P5 is stay here. So which process are delocate and which process are allocate? File management different or file are allocated. You are saving the file in a computer system. So a file is a collection of related information defined by creator. File system provide the convention for the encoding, storage, and management of data on a storage device such as the hard disk, FAT12, FAT16, FAT32, NTFS, ext3, HFS. The operating system is responsible for the following activities in connection with file management, file creation and deletion, directory creation and deletion, support primitive manipulating file and directories, mapping files or into secondary storage, file backup and stable storage media, motherboard basically, that act as the interface between the CPU and actual devices. With the device controller, device called the interrupt controller handle to task of receiving interrupt request and prioritize them to forwarding the process. Deadlock can occur when the two or more processes have control to different I/O resources that are needed by the other process and they are enabling to give the control of that. So yeah, different points are here mentioned related to the device management, I/O management. Basically here focus on the basically P2 resource, and another process are also required the P1 and P2 resources, but one process are not released the resources, so it is a condition of the deadlock. It performs the following activities for device management: keep track of all device connection connected to systems. Right. Next slide is security and protection. Basically, operating system is a support the Kerberos security. And Kerberos security, that means it is a provide the encryption or decryption. All of you know that the encryption and decryption. The operating system is the password protection, protect the user data, similar other techniques. All of you know that if you install the any operating system in a system, so you have the initial stage, you have the put up the security and put security in the way of the user ID and password form. It also prevents the unauthorized access to program and user data by assigning the access right permission to files and directories. The owners of information stored in the multi-user or network computer system may want to control use of that information concurrent process should not be interfered with each other. Windows basically work on the graphical user interface, and Linux, Unix, it is work on the common command line interface and take some outputs in form of this way. Suppose you write the you create the some folder in normal graphical way. You have to just right click and create the folders. But in command line, suppose you write down the mkdir make directory and directory name, then you have to create the directory. So it is not a user friendly, but is a security purpose. It is a most important. The graphical you have to see the everything, see the pictures, everything. Sorry. History of operating system, just some history of how to generated a computer system in initial way. Just you know the some idea related to the operating system, because in my topic is introduction of the of operating systems. Operating systems. The first generation 1940 to early 1950. So third generation 1965 to 1985 introduction multi-programming and development of mini computers. Fourth generation 1980 development of PCs and birth of the Windows Mac OS. Here mentioned types of operating system. Okay. Here mentioned 7 operating system: batch operating system, multi-programming operating system, time-sharing operating system, multi-processing operating system, distributed operating system, network operating system, real-time operating system, and multitasking operating system. First. No operating system, basically not easily to available the operating system, and not easily to interact the computer. So basically a task created as a batch form, create as a batch form. Suppose job 1, job 2, job 3, but is the mm, around same type of task. But in a job 1, same of tasks are put on. Job 2, same type of task put on. Job n, number of same type of tasks are put on, and create the batch. And one batch move on the CPU, and whole batch are run at a one time. So similar type of process executed. So you mentioned the 1970 batch processing was very popular. In this technique, similar types of jobs were batches together and executed in time. People were used to having a single computer which has called a mainframe. In batch operating system, access is given to more than one person. They submit their respective job to the system for the execution. The system put all of the jobs in a queue on the basis of the first come first serve, and then execute the jobs one by one. The user collect their respective output when all the jobs get executed. Advantage and disadvantage of batch operating system. Processor of batch systems know how to long the job would be when in queue. Multiple user can share the batch system. The ideal time for the batch system is very less. It is easy to manage in the batch system. Disadvantage of batch operating: the computer operation and batch system are hard to be debugged. It is sometimes costly. And you mentioned some points here. Multi-programming operating system. Multi-programming. All you know that word is related to the multi. That means number of program executed at the same time. That is called the multi-program. Multi-program extension of batch operating system where the CPU is always kept busy. That means each process need two types of system time, CPU time and IO time. CPU time, which time of CPU meet, and input output operation time. In a multi-programming environment, when a process does its IO, the CPU can start the execution of the other process. Secondary storage by writing that on the convention. Here some figure are there. Number of main process are there in main memory, and second from the secondary storage, and so go for the CPU one by one. That's the busy schedules. Advantage of multi-programming is throughout the system in increase as the CPU always had the one program to execute. Response time can also be reduced. Disadvantage of multi-programming system provide an environment in which various systems multitasking. Here mention the figure. One time of you work on the words, web browser, email, different processor executed. It allows the user perform more than one task